Welcome to this week of Missouri Politics Spring Break Edition, and we were very glad to be joined by the Senate Minority Leader, Senator Gina Walsh here in St. Louis County. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me, Scott. I'd prefer to look at it as a Democratic leader.
Democratic leader.
There you go.
You bet. Well, let's talk about some issues that you have for sure led on, and that's labor issues. One of the big issues coming up for the last half of session is going to be the right to work vote. Over in the House, they filed a piece of legislation that would move the vote from November to August. My question to you is, my assumption is that people signed a petition to put it on August or put it on November, and that's what you want. It looks to me just politics. Does anybody give you a reason that's not politics to move that vote?
Nobody has given me a reason whether they should move it or not. I'm perfectly happy with it in November, but I'm very confident that working men and women will come out and vote in both elections, and that we'll be successful in defeating Prop A. I'm confident of that. I think it was proven when they gathered those signatures. I think they needed 150,000 something signatures, and I believe that we provided them with 300,610 signatures. That's double what was necessary in a short period of time. If you've ever worked on a referendum, and you've been around a long time, so I'm sure you have, you know how difficult that work can be. And that was grassroots, rank and file, gathering those signatures. So I'm very proud of the people that I represent and the movement that I'm a part of. They did a yeoman's work.
Those signatures were for November?
Those signatures were for November, but the governor gets to decide where on the ballot it will be. And I think it takes legislation to do that, and there is a piece in the House. I don't know how quickly it's moving, but we're only at the halfway mark. Is
that something that maybe you might have some things to say about on the floor, maybe for a long time?
I'm sure I'll have a lot of things to say. I don't know for how long. I'm really going to try and keep it where it is. And in reality, I'm one of 9 in the Missouri Senate, and there's 34 members in that body. I can do the math, and I know what the reality is. But that's an issue that is near and dear to me. I think it should go where the people who signed that petition assumed it would be.
I watched you not filibuster the right to work vote. I mean, you filibustered, but it went to a vote after the election. I thought that was a show of statesmanship between you and Senator Kehoe.
Well, we really worked on it, and in reality, I knew after the November election what the reality was.
Well, the public did vote for it.
And yeah.
For a person to be governor that would sign it.
That ran on that platform. Yeah. I don't know that that was such a good idea, but I was proud of the work we did on it, let's say. Yeah. I'm glad whenever the Senate maintains the decorum and the history that surrounds that chamber, that we don't do things like that, that we continue to work as a body. And like I said, 9 senators. And we did have, I think there was 11 of us that voted not to move that bill.
You think it'd be a sign of almost bad faith then, after you showed statesmanship and letting something you didn't agree with, but the folks voted for, to turn around and then PQ something to move the date on it?
Well, there's been a lot of bad faith in that chamber in the last couple of years, coming from one point of view or another. You know, some of my members most of my members are still not happy about cutting a deal over special session with the circuit breaker and those things. And I think that Senator Shoup had made some commitments on some bills, and they turned around and PQ'd her. It was not... she doesn't think people acted in good faith, and I tend to agree with her. And my job as a minority leader is to support the members I serve. You know, even if I don't always agree with them, because we don't always agree. That's the beauty about being a Democrat. They say the big tent, but even when there's eight or nine people in our caucus, you have 8 or 9 opinions. I didn't think it was fair for me to push that chamber to a point where everything blew up. That was my issue. Right to work was my issue. Those are my issues. My counterpart, you know, might be health care or tort reform. So I try and remain respectful of what is important to each and every one of those members.
Let me ask you a question about another thing in that your issues, bailiwick. It's about prevailing wage. There's been bills ran to try to change the prevailing wage law, eliminate them. There's one now leaving the House that would eliminate prevailing wage. It's looked to me, just from the popcorn gallery, that there is a compromise maybe in some of the rural counties. Prevailing wage may be higher than it should be. Is there a compromise out there?
Well, we made a compromise, I believe, 5 or 6 years ago. I was just in this chamber. So we made a compromise then. I think Senator Dempsey was part of that. He's no longer there. And it seemed to me to be working, or at least it proved some points about what was said about the bill. Every legislature in both of those chambers has the opportunity to file a bill they feel is good for their district. I have worked with different groups, contractor groups and labor groups. Labor doesn't see a need for a change in this law, and it's not really our issue. It's a contractor's issue. And I've visited with 10 different organizations that recognize and have members of over 3,500 contractors within their organizations, and they don't want to change it. They're willing to work on a compromise,
you think, though,
and I think they're going to get there.
Contractors in St. Louis can look at something and say the prevailing wage law works very well here. Do you think in Oregon County, though, you could see where folks think it might not work as well?
Well, and that's why they're all sitting down to discuss a compromise. But I will tell you that I think that a lot of the folks that testified were both union and non-union contractors, and they were from both metropolitan areas and rural areas. 3,500 members is a lot of members. They're not all in Kansas City and St. Louis or Springfield. They're not all in our major cities in this state. They're all over this state. Prevailing wage is a tool that contractors use to set a minimum wage for work in our state that keeps our buildings safe, that allows, keeps fly-by-night outfits out of our state, and provides work for the hometown team. I'm thrilled to see the work going on in that capital that you and I both work in, and it's Missouri folks.
It's interesting. Sometimes folks think if you're from the state of Texas instead of Texas County, you're smarter. It's an odd thing sometimes we have. Let me ask you about tort reform, though. That's an issue that's definitely going to come back up. There's a venue bill, an asbestos bill. Are those things that you feel confident you can stop, or is that going to be the issue that actually moves out of the Senate to the governor's desk this year?
Well, confidence is a good thing, but it's never good to be overconfident in that chamber. I certainly hope that we can come to a compromise or stop them. That tort reform bill that we laid over on the table a couple of weeks ago, joiner venue, in my line of work is a pipe insulator. We used to be called asbestos workers. We don't use asbestos anymore. So does that mean that somebody that comes down with mesothelioma, who has been exposed to asbestos over a generation of their work history, would have to file a suit in every county that they were exposed to asbestos? Over 30 years? I've kept logs. I can tell you where I worked every day of my career. And that was part of my education in my apprenticeship. They taught us to do that. And that's one of the reasons. You need to know where you were exposed. But I don't know, if this law passes, would that mean you'd have to file in all these courts? And if we're in the business of making government smaller, right? To me, it just sounds like a bill to create new work for more attorneys. And
well, let's talk about a guy that has employed a lot of attorneys recently. The governor. The last time you guys went on break, the governor took to his Facebook page and said he was calling the career politicians back to work and canceling their vacations. I noticed he didn't cancel any vacations this week.
Yeah, I noticed that too. It's interesting to watch everything that's going on around that, but I'm happy to sit and watch the process play out. And I have faith in our system that we'll get to the bottom of this matter. And everybody's doing the right thing. The panel up in Jeff City out of the House, do
you have confidence in Jay Barnes?
I do. They're maintaining what they need to do. I think they're supposed to keep it, I don't want to say in secrecy, but I think that they're doing everything the way they're supposed to do it. They're following the book. And nobody wants to do this right, and nobody wants to make the wrong decision.
Let me ask you a question, though. If the governor refuses to testify before this or takes the Fifth Amendment, should a person be governor of
that
the state of
sends a very
Missouri?
Powerful message of your guilt or not to me. I worry about, you know, my statement. Some of the folks in the press might think it was an escape, but it was heartfelt and true. I worry about his wife and kids, the women that are involved in this. It's frightening, the things that our governor is being accused of. It's embarrassing. I just hope that we get to the bottom of it. I really do not want to sit here on your show and say somebody's guilty or not. I want them to go through the process.
Sure.
But it doesn't, right now things do not look good.
Well, on a happier note, last weekend, St. Patrick's Day, I'm a Dogtown guy, not a downtown guy in St. Louis. I noticed you were the Labor Person of the Year in the parade. Congratulations to you.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
If you can't have fun in Dogtown on St. Patrick's Day, you're not trying.
Well, that's exactly right. You don't even have to try to have fun.
There you go.
Downtown. I mean.
And congrats to Brian McKenna, the Grand Marshal of Parade. He's been through some tough times. It was kind of fun to see him get to have a good day.
And it was. And the week before, they have an event where they introduce us to the parade committee and things, and it was great to see him down there and his nephew Ryan and his family. That was down at the IBEW Hall. It was a fun night. I went down there and I didn't want to leave. My mother and I took her to Pat Conley's afterward. We had a great time. It was wonderful.
It was very good to see you.
And it's in honor of Judge Jim Wall, who was very near and dear to all of us.
Well, my son Gussie and I came and we wore our German hats. We celebrated in good Irish cheer. So
hey, everybody's Irish on St. Patrick's Day.
That's a fact. Well, very good to see you last week, and good to thank you for joining us this week.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back. Our opinion maker panel. Aaron Baker joins the panel after this.
In 2008, Republic Services acquired the Bridgeton landfill in a merger. Since then, we've invested $200 million to clean up the site and to maintain environmental compliance. We do that while staffing the facility 24/7. That's because we support permanent solutions that are safe for our neighbors and clean up the environment. We're committed to doing what's right. That's what drives us every day. We're a part of the community, and we are here for the long haul. Republic Services. We'll handle it from here.
My name is Eric Philippi. I'm a veteran, a carpenter, and a father. When Eric Greitens said he was going to change politics as usual, folks like me didn't think the first thing he'd do as governor was take dead aim at our jobs and our families' livelihoods by working to repeal prevailing wage. Call Governor Greitens. Tell him to protect prevailing wage and to protect my family, not destroy it.
All across Missouri, our new car and truck dealers are building strong local economies. When you buy a car or truck in Missouri, you're helping to support over 20,000 Missouri families who rely on the auto industry for good-paying local jobs. You're also helping fund our communities, schools, first responders, and our roads because dealers generate millions of dollars in tax revenue. Missouri's automobile dealers have been the foundation of our communities for generations and for generations to come. The Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, the heart of Missouri.
At Ameren, Missouri, we know what light can do. It draws people together and chases monsters away. And if you shine it in the right direction, it will light the path for the next generation, showing them what their tomorrow could look like and spotlighting the possibilities that lay in front of them. Investing in our community by lighting the way forward. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics Opinion Maker Panel time, starting with Joe Patterson, head of the St. Louis County Police Association and running for state rep now?
I am. Just announced last night, running as a Republican in the 95th District, Marcia Hafner's open seat coming here in August.
South County, Missouri, right?
Looking forward to Southern Oakville, great people, love the town, and looking forward to representing them.
Aaron Baker, longtime Republican active, operative, Axiom Strategies, welcome back to the show.
It's good to be back.
Angela Bingaman, Democratic fundraiser, right?
Yes.
I love that it's fundraiser. Some people say operative, but no, it's fundraiser.
No, I know what I do, so.
And good at it. Pat Whitehead, the St. Louis Labor Council, welcome back to the show, sir.
Great to be back.
Let's talk about issues affecting the second half of session. I think you start right off the top. The issue that may have the most political significance is the right to work vote. Right. You were part of collecting the signatures, 300,000 some odd signatures collected. Was those for a November vote?
Yes, when we went out to stop Proposition A is what we're calling it now. Yes, that when we were out getting the 310,000 signatures that we got, which was 3 times what we needed, that's what we were telling people, that it would be on the November vote, and that's what we want.
So is there a reason, have you heard any, you're a fair guy, you have Republican friends, count myself as one of them. Do you have, is there an argument you've heard that's not politics for why it would be on in August?
Well, that's not politics. We believe that they want to put it in August because they think that there'll be less voters. And quite frankly, I think that it's a little insulting because, maybe that, they think that the Missouri voter isn't educated, which we do. We feel like either way we beat it. But when we went out to get our signatures last year, we were telling people, this is for the November ballot.
Aaron Baker, you know the politics of everything in this state. Is there an argument besides the politics of why you put this on not in November?
Well, regardless of the politics of it or where people stand on the issue, we're going to have a lot of things to be deciding on in November. I think the main focus here ought to be that employers are not choosing to come to Missouri. Where I'm from, a lot of my friends growing up are welders. They have great jobs, good family-sustaining jobs, but every Monday morning they have to pack up a bag and go to another state to work because we're not attracting the type of jobs that a skilled labor force would be working in. And so right to work would be important to that. And regardless of when it is, Missouri voters are going to be able to decide that.
Joe Patterson, you're from a place in the state where people have a lot of union cards and they vote a lot of Republicans these days. If the thing gets on one or the other, which do you think is the right one?
For us, it doesn't matter. So I run a labor organization that's also very conservative. So the vast majority of my membership is Republican. We're law and order, we're police officers, we are skilled labor. My organization also has voluntary membership. 85% of the police employees of the St. Louis County Police Department voluntarily pay dues. My organization is very robust. It's continuing to grow. I have a fair share clause in my contract that I chose not to enact because I don't want people in my organization that don't want to voluntarily be there.
Angela, what's the politics of this? It helps Democrats, I assume, if it's on in November, so maybe Republicans try to put it on in August. That's
right.
And I think maybe if the Democrats were in power and something were the same, they'd probably do the same thing, correct?
Right, and I think that the timing of when this is going to be happening is definitely a political play. And I look at it from a Democratic perspective, and the clients that I work for, it's kind of a win-win either way for Democrats because we've seen with the past special election in February that right to work is a very hot issue, especially in districts where there are a lot of union members. So I think that this would boost turnout for some of those districts that the Democrats are trying to capture and take back in Jefferson County and maybe even St. Charles County if it's in November. In August, it may not actually have that much of an impact, so that's why probably the Republicans might want to move it to August, but I definitely see this as a political move and nothing else. But from my perspective, I think that right to work is going to fail either way.
Pat White, we're old friends. We shoot straight with each other. If the Democrats were in charge, the issues are reversed. They do it what's best for them too, right?
Well, sure, that's how it works. And and quite frankly, when we start talking about these labor bills, we've outperformed every state around us, and we haven't been right to work. And when we start talking about jobs, Amazon's building a big thing out here in St. Peter's, and it's going to be done union. So to say that we're losing jobs, I mean, we've outperformed every state around us in 2016. We've had more job growth.
Joe Patterson, you are from South St. Louis County, right there on the border of Jeffco. To me, it's an interesting thing when we talk about prevailing wage. Large issue talked about past the House, going to the Senate. It is a different. We live in the same very big state, but if you put up a 2x4 in Texas County, frankly, the prevailing wage may be a little off kilter. In your district, it may be pretty close to on. Is there a way that they can compromise, and is that where this bill's heading?
Listen, there's always a way for compromise, and I truly believe, and I've signed a lot of contracts, I've signed a lot of deals. The absolute best deal that I've ever signed is always one that I walk away from feeling like I didn't necessarily win, and the opposing side also feels the same way, right? So in the state of Missouri, we become so polarized. Can't we come together a little bit and say, listen, there is reasonable reform. There is not a single agency or entity in the state of Missouri that cannot do better. So why don't we work together to try to figure out something that makes sense for everybody?
Pat White, is that where this really is? I mean, I think even so, I have a lot of contractor friends that this is not a labor issue to them. This is a business issue to them. But I think most folks would say you go to Osage County, and maybe the prevailing wage is a little higher than what it should be by the algorithm.
Well, there's been deals struck in the past that people have gone back on that we were okay with, and to say there's not a compromise is just not true. We're willing to compromise. It's just, will the people that are really anti-worker come to the table and be with us? Because quite frankly, like you said, I mean, there are different counties where we are willing to compromise that with, where we have zero density. So, who wouldn't want a skilled laborer, whether it's a man or a woman, building your schools and your city halls. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. But yeah, there's compromise there. We're willing to do it. We've got our contractors working on this.
Is this an issue where if you're on the plaza in Kansas City and you watch this show, prevailing wage may be right. If you're down in Portageville trying to build a new gym, maybe the law isn't the best thing for you? Is there a way that they can actually shake hands on this?
Yeah, and I think that's the, why we have Democrats and Republicans coming together to come up with compromises. You can't get anything done in government if you're going to be polarized. I think the prevailing wage issue is one that Pat had just said and Joe had mentioned, that yes, there is a middle ground, and let's try to find that so that we can move forward. I think that if we abolish the prevailing wage completely, there's going to be a lot of backlash, and I don't think that now that it's into the Senate that we're going to let that happen. I feel that if we PQ over this issue, nothing's going to be done. So let's hope that the senators come up with a way to compromise so that the skilled workers are still the ones that are being paid and on these contracts. But yet, if there's some issues in some of the rural counties, then let's try to find the middle ground.
Aaron Baker, you're from rural Missouri. You're involved in Republican campaigns all over this state. Where do you think this goes? Is this one that Republicans just force through to eliminate the law? Do they change the formula? Is there a county by county change? Where does it happen?
I do think rural Missouri will receive some sort of reprieve here.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't make sense for taxpayers to pay 20 to 30% more for a new jail, a new school, or any other type of improvement just because it's a public dollar being spent instead of a private dollar. I do think that if something is done, it will be relief for the rural counties and really the county commissioners, and mayors, and other leaders in those communities.
Superintendents have a lot of power in that Republican caucus in the House.
It's not something they seem to advocate for strongly, but they really should. It's costing them and taxpayers a lot.
Angela Bingaman, an issue kind of lingering in the background over all these things is the governor's situation. This week, the Attorney General is now coming in and talking about his investigation. You saw the trial date got kept. It didn't get moved to next week. It got moved. It got kept in May. It kind of hangs over most things in Missouri politics.
Correct. And, it's unfortunate. I think that we have to look at the governor's situation as not a Republican issue and try not to make this partisan. I think that this is, the Attorney General needs to prove that he can investigate this in a nonpartisan way. I feel the allegations against the governor are very serious on a human condition and this is not politics. However, it does impact the work that's being done in Jefferson City. I think that, Eric Greitens has said time and again that he wants to drain the swamp, and so he doesn't get along with most of the Republicans. So if we can come together and look at this and go through this investigation on both sides of the aisle, making sure that due justice is served here, I think that we can get back to business in the Capitol.
But Pat, you're a member of a labor union. That's what you do for a living. You're better off he stays, right? I mean, Eric Greitens saying he's going to drain Ron Richard out of state politics. You're probably better off he sits right where he is.
Yeah, for me, it's more, and I know Gina talked about this earlier. For me, I feel sorry for the families involved. I mean, I'd hate whether it's the family that's accusing, or whether it's Eric's family. He's got a young kids. He's got a wife that has to open the paper. He's got a mother and father, and they have to read something different every day. He ran on family values, and here we are talking about this every day as opposed to what's going on in the state. We're talking about dark money. We're talking about, charity lists being, released. It's sad. I feel bad for the people that are close to him and close to the people that are accusing him because, I'd hate to have to open the paper every day and read that.
Aaron Baker, you're a longtime Republican. You've elected many, many Republicans to office. Now you're doing some work for the governor. What's the pitch? What's the reason why Republicans just still hang on and support him?
Listen, the governor is under attack because he's governed from the right. And Kim Gardner's case against him, there's zero evidence, and her case is collapsing. And I think you're finding that there are forces out there that are trying to attack the governor from these different angles just because of some of the policy decisions that he's made. And the legislature is passing, it seems like, more bills than ever and churning out legislation in the House and Senate. So things seem to be going well, and they seem to be serving without distraction.
Joe Patterson, I know you now talk to a lot of people in the House. I mean, last session, the legislature was relatively unproductive. You're conservative, maybe it's a good thing. But this session, when the governor's just been gone, except for the bills he's touched, which have sort of been it's not what you want, the governor to come out for your dog bill or your specific tax cut, things have moved along. What are you hearing from the folks in the caucus that you're looking to serve in?
The folks I'm talking to, the young leaders that I'm talking to, guys like my good friend Representative Dave Gregory, they are doing the people's business. These are not corrupt career politicians. These are folks who have worked very hard to earn an election, earn a win in their districts. They're going to work every single day. They're enjoying a nice spring break this week, but they've been working hard. We have 70 bills that have gone past the speaker so far this session.
Yeah. And the Senate sent a lot of bills over too.
Absolutely, yeah. So the bottom line is the people that have been put in Jefferson City to do the state's business are doing the state's business.
Aaron Baker, well, I got you. Where's this U.S. Senate race at?
You know, Claire McCaskill is extremely vulnerable. Polling always has Hawley up or tied. I think this is a really good chance for Republicans to pick up a seat in Missouri. And she's been very critical of Trump and voted against his policies. And Trump remains popular here, particularly in the rural areas that are so important to a Republican win.
Pat White, I've been in a labor event, and I thought the folks that ran the union were voting for Hillary, and almost all the guys in the crowd were voting for Trump. Can Claire McCaskill get those Trump labor guys to vote for her?
Absolutely. I think Claire, you know, just look at the vote on the tax, or on the budget. You know, she was one of the people that came across and voted with that. And I think Claire has shown she can go on and reach across the aisle. And I think that's what our folks look for. You know, they don't look for this partisan stuff. They want people that'll reach across the aisle.
College-educated women that live in the suburbs.
Yes.
Obviously, a surprising percentage of them voted for Trump.
Right.
Can Claire McCaskill vote for her?
I think that yes, she can. However, you know, she has to appeal to that electorate. And is she there right now? I don't know. It's too soon to tell. I think a lot of it, you know, has to do with how Hawley actually presents himself in the race. And we see, you know, how we go from there. So she has also she's won her races by the missteps of her opponent in the past. So I don't know exactly how this is going to go. You know, I would like to say that, yes, Claire's got it in the bag, but I think it's too soon to tell, and we'll know more as the summer goes on.
We're out of time here, so with a minute left, who won the week?
I would say Labor, because they're on break and they can't attack us.
Who won the week?
I would say late Representative Gloria Brown. She was a true stateswoman, and we've, you know, both sides of the aisle loved her very much.
Who won the week?
House Republicans for great recruitment this cycle.
Yeah.
And I will also mention Henry County Republicans. Their prosecutor and another elected official switched from D to Republican because they felt like Democrats were anti-cop.
Shannon Cooper country. Who won the week?
Todd Richardson showing good leadership in the House, moving the state's business along no matter what's going on.
I'm going to say Brian McKenna, Grand Marshal of the Dogtown Parade. Everyone likes him, and it was nice to see him have such a big day. I want to thank all of you for watching us this week, and we will see you next week on This Week in Missouri Politics. This Week in Missouri Politics, brought to you by Spire and Sterling Bank.
Melanie's a good kid. I call her a kid. She's not a kid, but she's a kid to me. She is kind and complicated.
She's kind of a little quirky, but she has the greatest personality. She's always up to do things, wants to do fun stuff. So Melanie has Down syndrome. She has some definitely health issues. She has a speech impediment that makes it difficult for her to communicate. So a lot of things she has to maybe show you, or she has a hard time getting words out.
Yeah, where was this one taken? Is that your aunt's house?
She gets up and then she gets herself dressed. Puts her dirty clothes in the hamper. She's very self-sufficient that way. She comes into the kitchen and staff provide her medication for her and she takes it. And then staff prepares breakfast for her. We have her wipe off the table. She might need a prompt to do that, but she does that on her own. 3 days a week she goes to program for Easter seals, and she does a lot of activities throughout the day with that.
She is thriving with independence. being in this house, in this program. She's very happy to be here. This is her home. It's an amazing journey that has happened to her.
She says she'll visit her family, but she wants to come home. So she feels like this is her home. And there's nothing you can make better than for her to be like, this is my home. We're working on different things all the time. So it's a continuous work in progress. We're looking at having her learn her address and phone number. That's been difficult for her, just to memorize it. But we do repetition every day.
You want to go look for some DVDs?
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know where she'd be if there wasn't for Easter seals. She would be probably having a less fulfilling life.
I'm very grateful to Easter Seals for the opportunity that she's been given. I've seen huge changes in her since she's been here to be on her own. And this is the best way that she can be on her own.
Where's your home? Here? Yeah. This is your home.
And I love this job. There's not a day that I don't want to not come here. And I know I'm making a difference. You can see that Melanie's happy, and that's probably our biggest goal, is we want our individuals to have rights and freedoms, and you can tell that she's very happy with that. She gets to live her life on her terms, and she's happy doing it.
Who's in this picture with you?
Daddy. She lost her dad about 4 years ago, and they were very tight. They were very close, and I'm sure he's smiling down right now.
We help people with disabilities be as independent as possible. We help them live out their life as full members of our community. People with disabilities want to do the same things you and I do. They want to work, they want to be valued, they want to have friends, and we help them achieve those goals.
We have to set priorities as a society, as a state, of what's important to us. And I think supporting individuals with disabilities is a really important thing for us to do. It's honoring the dignity of every human being and what their capabilities are and what their potential is, and allowing them to pursue whatever that is.
Many people with developmental disabilities need lifetime care. So we have a choice as a community. We can put them in institutions and nursing homes, which is expensive and inhumane, or we can help them live in the community and be as independent as possible. We can teach them the skills that maximizes their ability, whatever that is. That's good not only for the individual with a disability and their family, but it's good for the entire community.
That happiness that comes, that fulfillment, that dignity that people are allowed to have when we embrace the opportunities that are out there for people with disabilities is something that ripples across society. And so it obviously has an impact for that individual, but for their neighbor to see that individual working and having those interactions, and then that spreading across our state is an important thing. I think it should color how we view the world and what our priorities are.
The hope and opportunity that Easter Seals offers to people with disabilities would not be possible without the support of our community. Our donors, volunteers, neighborhoods that welcome people with disabilities, and our champions in Jefferson City make all of this possible.